Shall I compare thee to a robot? To AI or not to AI? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to bear the whips and scorns of outrageous retweets for Bezos is an honorable man. AI is stealing from you. It's stealing from lots of us. This video is about the ways that we are being robbed by technology, robbed of money, robbed of decision making, robbed of time, even robbed of memory. I'm Charlie. This is That Makes Sense to Me. We'll start with an actual robbery for comparison. I'm going to pause here for like a dramatic, because it's like a narrative. So I need a beat, like an actual robbery for comparison. Beat. The scratching in the plastic around the lock was the only evidence that I had been robbed. That and my phone buzzing enough to ruin my nap. My bank's fraud prevention algorithms had been triggered for 3 different accounts, leading to a slew of calls, texts, voicemails. No, actually, I was not 200 miles north of town attempting to spend $4,000 on one item in Walmart. So thank you, Robot Sentinel, for stopping this crime while I slept. I would have to get new credit cards and new numbers, but despite the inconvenience, I didn't have to worry about keeping the lights on. Fraud prevention had saved me. It is a shame, then, that for every benevolent digital soldier keeping money out of the hands of thieves, there is a growing army of mechanical miscreants that encode bias, profit from misinformation, and otherwise act as agents of the newest kind of criminal, data profiteers. Algorithms and AI have so much more power every single day. The restaurants we choose, the news we read, the people we date, all chosen increasingly by machines. We know this. We feel it. We feel it when we can't stop scrolling. We feel it when we can't stop binge watching, and we are being made to feel it increasingly. When we look across the political aisle and are overcome with a condescending anger at those idiots on the other side, righteous indignation flows over us as we shake our digital fists at the people we used to call neighbors and friends. Algorithms are going wrong, and we feel it. But what some people don't know yet is that the way that these algorithms are failing harms some people more than others. And as is often the case, digital harm compounds the pain of those who are already hurt. To defend ourselves against these new kinds of crimes, it turns out we need new concepts for navigating the digital space. Human unity against the specter of rising technology is a trope as old as science fiction itself. I have other videos about this if you're interested, some of them about killer robots and the sort of philosophy that a killer robot would have to have, in addition to men using advanced technology to sort of impose totalitarianism on the world. This is also just as much in science fiction as robot takeovers themselves.
Their extinction.
Globally speaking, technology going right can mean so much good, but we are watching it go wrong with the realest consequences on a human scale. My debit card and 2 credit cards had been stolen from the locked glove box of my aunt's car, but the thieves made some interesting moves. They left my wallet, my license, and even the cash behind. They also relocked the car and forcibly relocked the glove box, leaving the scratches in the plastic. After the adrenaline faded and all the pieces fell into place, I realized that they did that to give themselves time. This is all a data profiteer needs, a bit of unsupervised time. They knew. The moment that I knew that they were stealing from me, I'd report the crime and cancel the cards. All they needed was for me not to notice until after their purchase, and they'd have won. And it nearly worked. I was, after all, napping at home, none the wiser. Had the bots not been there to step in, they would have succeeded. But cut to a more extreme case. A UK company manager is working a regular day. This is a true story, BT dubs. A UK manager is working a regular day when he gets a call from the CEO of his parent company, his boss. Their Hungarian supplier needs a funds transfer. Within the hour, send £220,000. But these criminals were more sophisticated. Rather than leaving behind the wallet to deceive, they used publicly available recordings of the CEO's voice with enough audio that they were able to build a small, specialized AI.
Sloppy all night, you barely even danced with.
Don't make me laugh, I've been trying all night. You've been shaking your ass for like half of the height.
Not unlike Memoji or Snapchat filters that can change the shape or color of your face even as you move it around, this AI could mimic the voice of the boss. A thief on the other side of the phone could just talk in their normal voice, and a machine made them sound like the CEO. Look, who knew? Why bother with guns targeting flesh when algorithms can target minds? Russia isn't. This was a routine sort of request for the company. It wasn't $4,000 in an out-of-town Walmart. It was the boss. The manager complied, and in an hour, the company was out $250,000. This may sound simplistic, but they accomplished this because of something dead obvious. Today is often a lot like yesterday. The present is often a lot like the past, while age and illness and a person's voice slowly change. Most of the time, we sound the same day to day. This is the origin of nearly all modern AI systems. Facebook knows what to show us because our real friends tend to say the same mostly day to day. Twitter knows how to coax us into rage retweets because our politics today will be a lot like our politics yesterday. Our chosen relationship to the past, it's one of the most human decisions that we make. Yet, for the sake of collective convenience, we are giving this choice to machines. This may not be a problem, but as it turns out, our collective past is full of awful things. An AI applied to a single person can imitate the past by replicating their voice. But on a national scale, AI, like credit scores, like news feeds, like hiring algorithms, speaks in the same broken accent as our collective social past. One way that we all have experienced this is with Spotify ruts. Like, I was in one for years. The music service has this Discover Weekly thing, and it's meant to show us new songs. But the new songs were never interesting. Each month, the list was full of songs I'd already heard a dozen times. And to add insult to first world injury, the suggested songs were so similar to the old ones that they were always boring. Of course, I tried to listen to some wacky songs to throw off the algorithm, but it failed. It somehow knew those were just one-offs. It knew my taste, and it wasn't giving me what it thought I wanted. The thing is, it did know my taste. It just knew my old taste. I had changed, and it didn't have the flexibility to adapt in time. So dissatisfied, I left the service. The experience of frustration with Spotify repeating the past is a low-stakes microcosm of the emerging social problem of bias in AI. Spotify's inability to quickly adapt isn't totally its fault. It's baked into the nature of the algorithms under the hood. Recommendation algorithms, by definition, suggest new options based on old choices. Different individual past, different result. Google follows the same principles. Search for something in English, get English results. Search in New York results. But when you leave the individual perspective, I have a TikTok about this, but when you leave the individual perspective and move to the social perspective, collective imitation of the past can lead to problems. If you search Google in a culture fraught with a history of racial tension and white supremacy, you'll get directions to the N-word house. As documented by Safiya Noble during Obama's presidency, so many people were posting and searching for racial jokes that Google Maps learned to label the White House with a slur. But it isn't just liberal facing, right? Similar disdain was echoed in 2018 when searches for the word idiot returned images of Trump. Now, I'm not saying these things are like morally equivalent, but they express the same principle. The past determines the future that algorithms create, no matter how dark the past. We might be sad, we might be outraged, but we shouldn't be surprised because this is the nature of the algorithmic intelligence that we increasingly rely on. So beyond offensive language online, replicating the past on a social scale can have real-world effects. In the social collective psyche of the past, women were thought to be less effective in the workforce than men. So like Spotify shows us our old taste, we should expect algorithms to reproduce sexism, and they do. This was demonstrated accidentally by Amazon, who had to pull a hiring algorithm that was tossing out women's resumes. There's another principle at work here. Following the work of Kathy O'Neill and others, many of these algorithms feed back into themselves. Like a cup of spilled milk, you might think that these are algorithmic accidents. It's a bug in the system. It's just innocently repeating the evils of the crowd. But this is not the right mental frame. When these machines run long term, they actually become agents of sexism twice. Think about the tech sector. First, by preventing the flow of women into the tech sector, they're sexist and they're engaging in hiring discrimination that would be illegal if a human were caught doing it. But second, since the number of women in the tech sector was one of the machine's inputs, it becomes a feedback loop. If fewer women enter the tech sector, fewer women succeed there. If the system keeps running, the correlation between women and tech success decreases, further justifying hiring fewer women. It is a microphone brought too close to a speaker, screeching sexism, injustice in an inaudible tone. In our Spotify analogy, the more I listen to songs, the more it thinks that I like those songs, and the more it suggests them. Recommendation systems tend to entrench us in the patterns of the past. Now, Amazon eventually realized its problem and pulled the algorithm. They also maintain that it was never used to actually make hiring decisions, but I am left with questions. How many similar algorithms were pulled without media attention? How many similar systems are out there now that haven't been discovered? How many individual women's careers will be harmed or have been already permanently derailed by this broken digital relationship to our collective past? But we don't need to speculate. The predictive policing algorithm, PredPol, is a real-world example. It is efficient and logical to use crime data to direct police decision-making. But if data is used to set the zip codes where police patrol, a feedback loop emerges. Police won't find crime in areas they're not looking. White neighborhoods. Crime data directs the police generate crime data, feedback loop. As time passes, white criminals get off because there was never a chance that they would be caught. The more white criminals go free, the less likely they are to be caught in the future. And the more police over-patrol certain areas, black areas, the more crimes are over-prosecuted in black neighborhoods. Or, as was brilliantly explained by Rin Starr and Alex Engelberg,
black neighborhoods are over-policed, so of course they have higher rates of crime. And white perpetrators are undercharged, so of course they have lower rates of crime. And all of those stupid stats you keep using are operating off a small sample size. So shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Okay, we're just about at the end of the video here, so here's a quick reminder that if you're still here, you probably should subscribe, you should consider joining on Patreon or buying some books via affiliate links. Thanks. So to close, right, if we rewatch this delightful video and think about the argument, right, we might find ourselves asking a question. Sure, over-policing may be part of the reason that there appears to be a higher crime rate in the black community. And if that's true, the same logic will apply to our newer forms of digital over-policing, what Dr. Ruha Benjamin calls the new Jim Code. But from reading comments and from other conversations, I know that there are plenty of people who will not accept the concept that over-policing is the sole reason, the real reason, the only reason for these discrepancies in criminality across different racial communities. The systematic extraction of wealth from a community can lead to higher rates of violent crime in the community. This to say nothing of the school-to-prison pipeline. This to say nothing of mass incarceration and many systems of extraction and exploitation that form the everyday codes, the everyday algorithms, social algorithms of our world. We have a choice, right? We can point our finger at these systems and say these systems are the cause. Or we can choose to point our finger at the population itself. This is the definition of racism. This is the mythology of black criminality. This is the white supremacist field day. The concept that there is some intrinsic difference, some intrinsic hierarchy between different races. That cannot be the explanation that we accept. Instead, it is our job to understand and dismantle these digital and socio-digital systems that perpetuate and exacerbate the broken ills of our collective social past. Technology isn't neutral. It's a tool, and we're using it wrong. This video has been chapter 1 of a book-length project I am writing about this topic. We get it past 1,000 views, I'll release another chapter. I'm Charlie. This is That Makes Sense to Me. Thanks for watching.